We now have an API in front of our Lambda function, and it works. It runs smoothly, the responses are correct, and the frontend is happy. But there is still a problem. Right now, your API is publicly accessible. Anyone with the endpoint URL can hit it. And that's obviously not secure. And if you're building something for production, we need to lock this down. This time, I'm going to show you how to add authorization via Cognito to your API. This way, the only authenticated users can access your Lambda, and your endpoint is no longer exposed to the public. This video builds directly on top of previous sessions of the From Zero to Production on AWS series. So if you haven't watched them yet, please go and check them out first. We have linked the playlist and relevant videos down in the description, where we have also linked our Github repository, where you can find the detailed documentation about every video and the assets to follow along. My name is Juan Simon, developer at Xinitry, and this is part of my From Zero to Production on AWS series, where I don't give you tutorials, I give you real-world solutions to real-world problems. Now let me show you what the main idea is. We have our dev environment or our front-end application, and we need to request our API to run a Lambda function. The API needs to be able to validate if we are authorized to make the call. A way to handle this is by introducing Cognito. When making a request, API Gateway will look for a token in the authorization header and ask Cognito to validate that token. If approved, the request will go on. Otherwise, it will return immediately. But before we dive into this approach, let's quickly clear up an important distinction: HTTP APIs versus REST APIs. HTTP APIs are lightweight, fast, and cheaper, but the security options are limited. You can only protect them with API keys. REST APIs, on the other hand, are a bit slower and more expensive, but they give you the flexibility to use advanced authorizers, like Cognito user pools or even Lambda-based authorizers. REST APIs also handle more formatting and data transformation, which adds overhead, but it can be useful in some scenarios. For the purpose of our application, we're going to use REST API, since we need to integrate Cognito as authorization method. So let's go and build this in the console. So now right here over in the console, let's search for API Gateway, and it should be right the first one. So click on that and let's create a new API. As previously explained, we're going to use REST API for the purpose of our application because we need to integrate Amazon Cognito as authorization. So let's hit build. I'm going to call it Xinitry API just because it's simple. After that, click on the Create API button because there is nothing more to set up here. I'm going to create a get method right over in the root of our API, but you can also create a custom resource. It will work perfectly fine. So let's select a get method and activate the Lambda proxy integration and select our Lambda. Now just scroll down and hit create method. Once created, just deploy your API into an already existing stage or just create a new one like I did. Now let's copy the invoke URL and go over to Postman to see if our API runs. Now over in Postman, click on the New button on the top left corner and select HTTP. Make sure to have the get method selected and paste your invoke URL. Now let's test this. As you can see, we are successfully getting our hello world from Lambda. The problem is that our API is now publicly accessible and anyone with the endpoint can hit it. So let's go back to the console and go to the Authorizers tab. Here we're going to create a new authorizer to allow Cognito to validate our tokens. So the best name is Xinitry Auth. Don't forget to select Cognito in the Authorizer tab, and under Cognito user pool, select the user pool that we have previously created. And before we submit the creation, we have to specify the token source, and in my opinion, the best one is the authorization header, since it's not only descriptive, but it's also a standard way to pass the authorization token. So now that we have successfully created our authorizer, we have to apply it to our existing resource. So go to the Resources tab and select the get method that we have previously created, and under the method request, hit edit. Right here, the only thing to change is under the method request settings, where you have to select your just created authorizer. Now, just hit save and deploy your API to your already existing stage. This will take some time, but not longer than 2 or 3 minutes. And thanks to the power of editing, I am able to speed up this process. So let's go and test if our API now works. As you can see, we are now getting an unauthorized response since we are not including our token in the authorization header. For that, go over to the Headers tab and add the authorization header. And to get the value, we're going to use the post request that we have created in one of our previous videos that is showing right now in the top right corner of the screen. So paste that in, and if we now try our API, it will run smoothly. Alright, that's it. If you're building on AWS and you're running into challenges like this, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next tip.